Hi, my name is Sean Smith, um, and I'm a mental health educator as well as a professional in the field. And I am someone who has also had lived experience, which means that I myself have suffered from mental illness. So you may be thinking right now, oh my God, is this crazy guy gonna tell me what to do? Or isn't that like the blind leading the blind? Well, it could seem that way. However, thankfully enough, um, I did not suffer from a thought disorder. I had major depression and anxiety and um, very bad ADD, or attention deficit disorder. But I did not have any malfunction or dysfunction in the way that I thought, as would be the case with something like schizophrenia. So I actually had a very thriving career, and as I will outline for you in a few moments, will inform you of the many professional opportunities I had when I was younger. And I learned a lot from on job experience, from living it and going through the process of having a mental illness and all the variables which were related to um, what it would take to treat me because I was considered treatment resistant. And so I did a lot of reading on my own as well. So between school, which I will get to in a moment, and education, and my professional career, as well as me researching everything under the sun to get myself well because nothing seemed to be working at all. I really came up with a lot of tips, tricks, and ways, or they call them hacks these days, of dealing with mental illness and especially depression as well as anxiety and ADD. But I also did numerous studies on the other psychiatric illnesses. Um, So my education started with when I was just in 19 or 20. I graduated with a bachelor's from New York University in psychology, and I also was a pre-med student at the time, and did well. So I was able to land work pretty quick out of school, unlike some other people. And I landed my first job at the New York Institute for Medical Research, where I was an EEG technician as well as a patient coordinator or patient research coordinator, which means I collected study data points from patients. And I also did measured their brain waves by placing electrodes onto their skull. And I became quite good at it. And the other doctors that I worked with seemed to notice that there was something special about the way I was performing these EEGs because I learned how to interpret them. And they at one point were considering whether or not they needed a neurologist, which was weird for someone that just had a bachelor's. And anyway, they of course did not get rid of the neurologist, but I continued to make my observations. And at the time, we were working with chronic fatigue syndrome and dementia and major depression. And one of the doctors took note of me, and he was working closely with the Harvard professor, a world renowned psychopharmacologist, and he told me that this position was open. It was an honorary position, which means it didn't quite pay what you would think a job like that should pay. And I moved to Boston from New York, and I started working at the Mass Mental Health Center, which is the Harvard teaching school the Harvard Medical School Teaching School for Psychiatry. It's where the residents learn how to become shrinks. So at Harvard, I was running the studies as well as being an assistant to my boss, who was this professor of psychiatry. I attended the case conferences as well as the lecture series, as well as meeting with the representatives from the drug companies. And I also met with the patients a few times a week to run the studies that were being run there at the time, which was panic disorder and depression. And back in the day, we were testing out the SSRIs. It was when Prozac first became famous, and they thought it may even change personality. But now we know different, and it was a big thing in the day, and they were very interesting times, to say the least. I also worked as a patient counselor or residential counselor for several years at a residential facility for schizophrenics and people with schizoaffective disorder, and that is the thought disorders. And so I have education in that domain as well. I worked as a counselor, guiding them with their behaviors as well as dispensing their medication, because I was trained to and allowed to give medication to people who were taking medication for themselves. I did not prescribe because I am not a doctor. I merely gave them their own medication because they were unable to do so. And I learned a lot as a counselor. From there, I went on to work at pharmaceutical companies and in the biotech industry, mainly running studies on various antidepressants and medications which block the opioid receptors. And I was a clinical data manager, a senior one, and I was responsible for working with teams to decode the data and collect the data from the studies and manage the data in a way that it could be then written up for the FDA, etc. And that was several years of my life. Then I got hit by a major depression, landed in bed for over a month when I was around 37. I happen to be 52 at the moment, so you may be wondering, like, how do you account for all these years, which would make sense. But I am actually 52 at the moment, and I ended up on disability because with the anxiety and all, I developed severe agoraphobia, which made me very fearful of leaving the house. So I learned a lot about that because I was so scared to even go grocery shopping or do anything like that. I didn't leave my front door for years. At the same time, I was trying to research everything that I could to help my depression because I had been on around 50 drugs at that point and nothing seemed to be working. So I was going through all the literature and doing my own research because I did not trust the average psychiatrist. And I tried to come up with my treatment plans for myself, but nothing seemed to be working until a few years ago when I just seemed to get everything in to work for me in the right direction and in what you would call a remission from the depression. And so I'm doing much better these days, you could say. I also am an author, and I've written 4 to 5 books that are sold on Amazon. You can look them up by searching my name, Sean S. Smith. Some of the books, 3 of them actually, are on psychiatric disorders and the psychiatric system, as well as how research works, etc., etc. You could look into that yourself. They're sold on Amazon, and they are very informative, and could be a supplement to this series, which I'm going to run, which is going to be on the hottest topics of mental health. Yes, you got it. I'm going to be talking about everything from the use of different diets to treat symptoms, to what new drugs are available, to treatments such as TMS, which are now on the market, and which is transcranial magnetic stimulation, a fancy word, basically meaning magnetic pulses to the temporal lobes of the brain to stimulate neurohormone activity, so that it is one of the better treatments for treatment-resistant depression without having to resort to an antidepressant. However, as far as I know, it will only be allowed by insurance if you've been through many pharmaceutical agents in the past and they have failed and you are truly considered treatment resistant. So basically, I'm going to be talking about things that you want to hear about. But I really have all my intentions are that this is going to be a definite two-way street between us, meaning between me and my audience, you, and between your feedback and comments and questions. I'll provide the answers. I'll do the searches. I will give you the information that I have, the most up-to-date information, and the information that matters most and that seems most logical. Excuse me. Ideally, the audience feedback will provide me with how I'm going to prioritize my topics that I present in this playlist, and which topics will be more critical than others, and I will make it a priority to get to people's questions and respond to what the audience feedback is by providing weekly videos on all the topics that come up. If a topic does not come up in the comments section, then I will come up with my own topic matter that will hopefully be something that's truly interesting to you and will be a psychiatric hack that you could use, something that I've learned that's interesting, and again, that could range from anything from what the role of exercise is to what Ambien is and everything along the lines. Whatever you're interested in, I'm more than willing to talk about. So that, again, I hope this will become a two-way street and I get to know some of you. I hope you enjoy the videos. I'm not really normally a public speaker, so I'm still getting used to this. Hopefully my other videos will be smoother and I'll be more smiley for you, and maybe I'll even crack a joke. Who knows, that could happen. Basically, I'm willing to go with the flow, and hopefully you will be as willing as well. And so I hope you're all doing well. Stay safe during this pandemic. Get vaccinated if you could, because it's your safety and others' safety, and children are involved now. And I hope to provide you with some good information that is relevant to you or family members or someone that has touched you in your life. And I do this because I care about people. There's really no big money that I'm making on this. This is something I'm doing as sort of like a good deed. I don't expect much to come from this because, as if you're familiar with YouTube videos, in order to monetize it, you need like thousands and thousands and thousands of followers, and there's other requirements as well. So take care, everyone. Peace and be well. And I'll hopefully be putting out my first video on a mental health topic as early as next week. We'll see you soon. Take care.